Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Paul. Our guest today, Randy Adkins Jr., creatively weaves his experience as a corporate consultant, ordained minister, and community leader into it that inspires people to integrate spiritual principles and everyday life. Such is the theme of the next chapter with Charlie, the integration of spirituality in everyday life. So it seems that Randy and I are swimming in the same pond as kindred spirits, and this show will demonstrate that. So let's welcome our guest on the show. Randy Adkins, welcome to the next chapter with Charlie.
Hey, Charlie. It is so fantastic to be on this show with you today, and I'm ready to just share some great information and have some great conversation.
Super. I am too. As I went through our notes and preparing, I became even more excited about doing our show. Before we get into the meat of our show, I'm curious. On your website, you wrote that you are a distinguished Toastmaster. Tell me what that means. What is a distinguished Toastmaster? Do you get a trophy or a medal or something to stick in your car?
So I have been with Toastmasters International. Toastmasters International is a international group. You have chapters that are throughout internationally. Pretty much anywhere you go, you can probably find a Toastmasters chapter. They've been around for well over 50 years, and it's all about being a better speaker and better leader. And as a distinguished Toastmaster, that means you have the highest achievement that is capable there through their education awards in leadership and speaking. So that means at minimum, you've done a minimum of 30 speeches, you've held a district office, you've done some projects, and that's what it means. And so you've done quite a bit of speaking around and probably don't have a lot of ums and ahs to say when you're talking.
So you've got your black belt in public speaking.
I guess you could say that. I've been doing this for almost 10 years with Toastmasters and speaking and preaching even longer than that.
Oh, that's great. So I have a related question. Your work in your new book, Produce on Purpose, is all about, obviously from the title, it's all about purpose. And I'm curious, how has your experience with Toastmasters helped you understand your sense in purpose, in your sense of your purpose in life?
I would say from a Toastmasters perspective, I have learned that my purpose is being able to share a message consistently in a way that is digestible for as many people as I can communicate with, as well as being able to utilize my skill sets to lead from a purpose perspective in multiple areas in community leadership, in items in our church. I've been able to take the information that I've learned within Toastmasters and some of the experiences there to find out that I do have a purpose and a message that I can continue to share, and I continue to tweak every single week as I go to my Toastmasters meetings and share with my group, and I have a support network that's a part of that as well. So I've found that having a purpose to be able to teach and share a message that is important and impactful, making it as impactful as I can, that's what Toastmasters has helped me with.
I'll tell you, I'm impressed. That's really the only thing I'm not even regular at it now, but I was for, 8 or 9 years. But the only weekly meetings I attended outside of church was Alcoholics Anonymous. And so we're dealing with two different issues, both in purpose, but two different approaches.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So you have said that the great journey of our lives is to uncover our potential and our purpose. I'm fascinated by both. I'm fascinated by purpose, obviously, but I really am fascinated by potential. So can you, here's a two-phased question. Can you define your understanding of what the definition. What is the definition of a life purpose? And then also, secondly, what is the relationship between purpose and potential? So first, how do you define purpose?
I take a specific stab at purpose on my own. I have defined purpose as two areas. One area is that we all have a general purpose, and then the second area is that we all have a specific purpose. For the general purpose, I explain that as me and you being able to have a place in our lives where we are pleasing our Creator. You may call your Creator nature, universe, whatever. I call my Creator God.
Me too.
And because He is the one that I believe is the one that's guiding me and has created me and designed me. And based on that, because the Scripture says that God is love, and for me to please my Creator, then every expression that I do on a daily basis will be in love. And that means if I'm talking, I'm going to do it in love. If I'm going to go somewhere and I'm showing empathy, I'm showing it in love. I'm doing whatever I'm about in love all the time. So that's the general purpose, and that's across the board. I think anyone that has a belief in their Creator understands that they want to please the Creator, the one that designed you. The second portion that I define purpose with is your specific purpose. And your specific purpose is unique to you. You were designed uniquely with some gifts and some talents. And those gifts and talents are unique to you, and you alone can do those so well. It's that thing that you have that no one else feels like they can do as easily as you. And sometimes I believe that when we find that intersection between our general purpose and our specific purpose, we then find a great place where we can have a passion for life, can have meaning for life, can have more fulfillment in what we're doing.
I had a question on that, and then we'll go to the second part. But I do have a question because you used a phrase that I really like, and that is you said, you do your purpose. Talk to that, because I know what you mean by that, but I'd like you to talk about that because I think that's really revelatory.
I like to explain it this way. I go in my kitchen, and my kitchen has a dishwasher, we have an oven, we have a microwave. The dishwasher has a purpose, and the easiest thing for the dishwasher to do is to wash dishes. However, if I take and I put a ham in the dishwasher, it's just going to have a difficult time trying to bake that ham, because that's not what it was created for.
Yeah.
It was created to do dishes. The same thing with the oven. The oven wasn't created to wash dishes. It was created to my ham. And when we are in alignment with that in our lives, when we look at our lives and we have our purpose and it's uniquely designed for us, and it's going to be easy for you because you were designed to do that. We're designed for that purpose. And it's not going to be something that's going to be take a lot of effort. Because sometimes we find ourselves in places in life where we are putting in a lot of effort. That was because it was not your gifting.
Yeah, your natural gifts, your talents, your history of experience, all of it has played into a role that people wonder what I am good at. And I like your idea of it's easy. If you wonder what you're good at, what is easy for you to do? Not as what have you accomplished that's hard to do that you overcome. That's typically our answer. But in light of it's what is easy for you to do. And that really defines your giftedness.
Yeah, and correct. And not only when we are seeking that in our lives, what will happen is you will get validation from others. They will tell you that, hey, look, you do that pretty easy. I have a hard time doing that. I often get that, hey, you're able to share a metaphor, an analogy that really explained that particular item in a clearer form for me. That's part of my gifting. And they were like, I couldn't do that really quickly. And that's fine. We all have different areas of our lives. Maybe someone just is good at smiling. Some of us aren't good at smiling because our face wasn't built that way. But
or even being kind to grumpy people.
Exactly.
Yeah, some people are not meant to smile because they don't have a soft spot in their soul. They got a hard spot. They got that cranky spot. So go ahead and explain now the second part of the question. What is the relationship between purpose and potential? Potential is huge in my life and in my vocabulary.
Yeah, potential, when we look at potential, is typically what is it that's going to be the highest version of who you are. We go through this life with many versions of our lives, many seasons of our lives, many transitions in our lives. We know that potential defines that there's more for you that you're going to be in this world, that you already have everything that you need. What you're doing is you're going to start revealing more of who you are from that potential being able to grow. And what I like to use as analogy here is, if I have a seed and it's the oak tree, the seed already has that entire oak tree inside of it. Once we bury that seed into the ground, everything else starts to work around that seed, and that seed breaks and it grows. And the potential for that oak tree over time will grow to be more than just what that seed was at the beginning. But everything, all of the DNA that was going to be whatever that oak tree is going to be in the future, already there. Same thing with us. We all have that potential in us at the very beginning. And when we find our purpose, we are to be like taking all of the ground that your seed has been put in, all of the watering that needs to happen, the nurturing that needs to occur. You're moving along with your purpose. You're allowing your potential to be shown and expressed in this world in a greater way. The expression of your potential comes from the ability to understand your purpose in a greater way. And as you're doing more in alignment with that purpose, you're nurturing more of who you were always born to be. And again, I will just bring up that when we are going down a path of that's quite not our purpose, we often find ourselves not really growing as much because find ourselves putting in a lot of effort because we're not putting in the necessary pieces of the purpose that will continue to allow that potential to shoot up in you and out to this world.
I like that. And you know what that assumes? That as you bring growth into the idea of potential and purpose, it's that the purpose we have is exactly like you said, it is a seedling. It is growing all the time and expanding into what it could be, what it might be, but it is up to us and the hand of the divine to nurture that, to till the soil and feed the soil and help that grow. And that ends up with a life of fulfillment, contentment. There's nothing like fulfilling your purpose, is there? There's just nothing in comparison.
Yeah, your purpose, when you begin to really move into a space where you are allowing your purpose to shine out in your world, you begin to understand that you are fulfilling the greater cause of who you are. Mm-hmm. And I think about life that sometimes we can become very myopic in what we're thinking about. When I say myopic, it's nearsightedness, that we can only see what's happening in front of us. However, when we are in our purpose, sometimes the things that may be external to us, that may be hitting us at the moment or affecting us at the moment, you understand that there's a greater cause for what you're in right now. You might be in a storm right now that is financial or health-wise, or there's something that's not very good at your job that's going on. There are many issues that could be arising around you, but they're all external to who you really are. When you understand that in coming out of you with a purpose and with a understanding of meaning, then you know that that situation's only going to be temporary, that it's not going to last forever, and that as you are moving forward, that you are putting forward a greater meaning, a greater cause, and that's where your fulfillment comes from when you understand that, hey, I might be I might not feel good right now. I do know and I can see that there's hope down the future. There's hope for tomorrow. There's hope in everything that goes on. I think of a scripture that says, many are the plans of man. It's God's purpose that prevails. And when we understand that and we have that as an anchor, is something that will allow for us to say, I am doing something, I am aligned with my purpose in all parts of my life. I can begin to see fruits of that purpose by producing on it everything that I do.
So I'm tracking with you, I'm agreeing with you, and I'm thinking at the same time, how many people are either looking for a purpose or have a purpose and then think they have a purpose, which obviously means if you just think it, then it's not your purpose. But you go on for a while, it's not fulfilling, and it's the idea of climbing the ladder of success and getting to the top, and only then realizing your ladder was leaning against the wrong building. How does one prevent that? Can we be assured, or even can we be assured we're tracking with our purpose?
I believe that there are some specific techniques, specific disciplines and practices that we all should tend to. When I was younger, I played baseball, I played basketball, and I did learn that the more that I practiced, the easier a particular drill became. If I was doing basketball, the more I practiced to dribble, it was easier for me to dribble without even having to concentrate on it. It's the same thing in life when it comes to our purpose. There are practices and disciplines that will lead us to our purpose in a greater way and understanding it. Some of the disciplines and practices that I would encourage is, number one, something like prayer. Prayer, I define as communicating with your Creator on a consistent basis, and in the Scripture it actually tells us that we're supposed to constantly pray. And so what prayer will do is you then seeking out and saying, hey, this is what I'm looking for in my life. I'm looking for the meaning of what I'm supposed to do next, because one of the areas you may not know all of the things that we're going to do. It would be nice if we had a full map of our entire life, but we don't. It's more like a GPS. It's just telling us, hey, here, take a left, take a right, and you don't know what's going to come next, but you have to have faith to take on that next step.
Faith in ways.
Yeah.
You're asking a lot there.
I love the GPS because sometimes the GPS does tell me you have arrived, and I'm like, I haven't really arrived yet.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. That was when we were talking earlier. You were talking about as you're talking about prayer and communication, you had mentioned the idea that I like a lot of connecting with the Creator. Is this that part of that aspect that you were talking about, that this is the beginning the process by connecting with the Creator?
Yes. Using prayer, you can begin to connect with the Creator. And the second part I was about to talk about was the meditation, which is listening. Because there are two things we have to be very good at, and that is, number one, being able to ask and say, okay, look, I don't know. And I believe when we are able to recognize that we don't know, and then we're finally in a space where we are as an humble child, or we're in a space where we don't know it all, we don't have enough pride to say, I know what's next. I don't know at this moment, so you're asking in prayer. And then you're going to sit in meditation enough to listen to God. And my encouragement is we may not be able to take 30, 40 minutes to sit in meditation to listen to hear what God has to say. I would encourage you to start off with 1 minute. Start off with 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Try to increase it. And there is where I think a big key is of finding and hearing from God. Then the third thing I will share.
Let me speak to that real quickly, because I have my experiences, personal experiences, way deep into that. And for a few years now, I've been deep into contemplative prayer. And one of the things about contemplative prayer is the fact, is the art of listening. And it is where you are not petitioning, you're not asking. Typically, when we think of prayer, we think of asking God for stuff and things and remedies and medicines and who knows what. Instead of, in prayer, seeking relationship. And that's what contemplative prayer is all about. It's seeking intimacy with the divine. And you can't be intimate without being on the receiving end, not just the yapping end. And I really so agree with your idea of listening. That's a tremendously strong attribute to prayer that is just not taught that much. You know that, Randy? It's not, we're talking about it, and I think there are many people in churches that aren't even really familiar with the concept of listening in silence to God.
Yeah, and it's so important to really finding that place of purpose, finding the meaning of your life specifically, and it will provide you with that greater context that there is something bigger than myself in this world that I should be doing. And as you do that and you learn how to listen in a greater way, provides you with a greater sense of every day, when every relationship, every person that I speak to, all of the encounters that I have, that they have a greater meaning than just what I see on the surface, that there is something greater that is happening at every moment and every time that I'm trying to make a move or trying to be who I am. I can understand that this moment that there is something larger that is happening in my life. We begin to serve and provide service in this way. It also provides us with a greater sense of why we are here, why our relationships, why they're important, what they mean, and it provides us with that great place to really bring it together. So I'm praying, I'm listening to understand this purpose that I have. And what I was going to say, the last thing to think about is I encourage journaling. I encourage people to write down. So every day, if you are in prayer and in meditation, write down, number one, what you prayed for, number two, what you heard. And then we want to write that down and we want to reflect on the previous day, next day. And as you do that, you will find that there is progress being made in what you understand to be your purpose, what you're supposed to be doing at a moment in time, and you're going to be getting the direction that you need. And I encourage everyone to stick with it, as I was talking about practices and disciplines, that when it comes to practice and discipline, we have to do it when we don't feel it, feel like it. You have to wake up and you have to say, I'm going to do this every day, and I'm going to take the time to do this because that's how important it is to me. That's the priority it has in my life. When we put this as a priority in our life, it becomes the thing that actually ends up making our life a lot less effortless. We talked about effort and easy, and you want a life of ease and a life of more fulfillment. When I say ease, I'm not saying that everything you do is going to be easy, but I'm saying that your perspective of this life and what really matters changes.
Once again, my brain is going faster than I can grab hold of the items there. Oh, one of the things that you talked about there was journal what you heard. I'd like to comment on that, because not to think that, we're hearing audible voices and like we're getting a text from God. These are your 4 lessons. It comes in something that's really important to you that I would like to get to in our podcast today, and that's about listening to your heart. It is about that almost without words. There are feelings, there are emotions, there are intuitions that you sense that something, an aha, you sense that something is going on. That perhaps is the divine speaking to you. And as you write it out, as you journal it, it becomes clearer and clearer that, I don't know, I'm not sure where this came from, but it didn't feel like exactly me after I'm done with it. Because I'm like you, I journal regularly, and it's become such a habit that I miss it if I don't journal. Then I really feel like I've missed an opportunity. But it's not that we're becoming, I'm losing, amanuensis. We're writing down verbatim words we heard, but it's feelings and intuitions. Do you agree with that?
Yes, and I have a chapter called "Listen to Your Heart" in the book, and the reason that this is so important is we are all born with capabilities and intuition, or sometimes with the science community like called the gut brain, that you have, that it's already there. The example I love to provide is I'm driving down the road and I know I'm speeding and I see blue lights come up behind me. And before I can think about it, I am already having a reaction in my body. And it's almost, is he after me? Mm-hmm. And before I know whether or not he's after me, I've already had that feeling. And we have those feelings every single day throughout the day. That there are times when you feel that there's something either not right about a situation or something that is very right or very good for you, but you have these emotions that immediately come up without you having to think about it. That means that when we are able to listen to, that is that a divine nature within you already have within yourself. In fact, in the book that I talk about, we are a tripart being from a spirit, soul, and body. And the reason I talk about that in the book, because our relationship to this outside world primarily happens with this body, our soul, where our mind, our will, and our emotions are, control, hey, what are we doing with that body and how are we reacting? But we all have a spirit that has been put within us, deep within. The question is, are we allowing the outside external information to feed our soul, or are we actually being fed in our soul from our spirit? We begin to understand that our heart is where our spirit really lies, and it's really trying to give us information immediately without us having to think about it. And this is where I distinguish between the heart and the head. Many times our head, we are thinking about things all the time. There are many thoughts that come through our mind, and all thoughts are not meant to be entertained. But when we begin to look at and listen to our heart, we want to do is have our heart inform our head. When our heart begins to inform our head and we begin to allow that to be the way that we are moving, you begin to find that there are going to be greater synergies in your life and greater areas of your life where you can now listen to what's going on. So instead of having that external information or stimuli be the only thing that's guiding you, begin to listen to your heart. And the more you do that, the more you journal, the more you understand, begin to distinguish between very nuances that may be happening or may be hearing. And when I say hearing, again, it's not just audible. I'm saying a listening that's happening, the internal self that you have, that you begin to feel and understand that this is the direction I'm supposed to go. This is how you begin to distinguish direction and have discernment in your life.
You know what I want to do? I'm going to take a break, but I do want to, when we come back, I want to explore just a little bit more that sort of almost contrarian view that you believe the heart actually informs the head when we view the head as the information side. So let's talk about that after a break, but we'll take a quick break here. Hi there, this is Charlie Hedges, and you are listening to The Next Chapter with Charlie and my very special guest, Randy Adkins Jr., and we are talking about potential and purpose and how we can, I think as we've titled this this show, Uncovering Your Purpose in Life. And Randy was explaining the idea that he brings to the table, that he believes the heart informs the head. Typically we think of the head as that left brain inspirational or left brain sort of informational access point. And Randy, you're suggesting that the information that is necessary for the head comes from the heart. Can you make that distinction for me in a few words?
Yeah, the idea is that we begin to move in a direction where our heart begins to inform our head and our thought processes and what our actions will be and do, versus it can happen the other way. You can have your head inform everything else that you do, but you are not coming from an internal place where you have been uniquely born and created. Sometimes I would share it as when your creator made you, he breathed air into you and life into you. And that's what allows for all of us to be here, is that you are breathing at this moment. That breath is part of what your heart is coming from, is that creator put that within you to make sure that you can now without ever having to think about it. So think about all of the functions of your body that you don't think about. They just automatically work. And that's part of what the heart will do for you in every facet of your life and things that you're encountering. You're meeting people all the time and seeing different things. Heart can inform you about that situation. But if we always are trying to think about the situation, I meet someone, I'm trying to size them up and meet them from the external. I'm looking at who they are, and maybe I'm asking them questions, and that's going to be the analytical headway of trying to find out about that person.
Yeah.
But when you first met that person, was there a feeling that you had, and was it a feeling that provided you with information? And many times there's information that's there that we have not paid attention to about
Absolutely.
our lives.
Yeah.
When you begin to focus on that, it begins to inform you in a greater way.
Yeah, I write a weekly blog, and I have on my future blog list to write on is a blog on Lost in Logic, and that so much of what the way we understand life and meaning and purpose and fulfillment is not illogical, or it is not irrational, but it does not come through rational, logical, post-enlightenment ways of thinking, but it comes through inspiration. And I have encouraged in the process that I teach on prayer and reading of scripture, is I encourage, of course there's times to read the Holy Writ, whatever Holy Writ you read, to read it for information. But to get into the contemplative side, to get into that emotional side, to get into the right brain side, one must approach it looking for inspiration, not information. And then I also encourage, as you're reading, if it's only been a couple of paragraphs even, and you are inspired, stop reading. You don't need to read anything else. It takes a very long time to read through Scripture doing this, but unless you're reading through the prophets, then they go pretty quickly. Is looking for that inspiration, that sort of voice that informs your heart, which, as you say, then comes to inform the head. So I'm right in line with you there, man.
And I believe that the more we practice that, the greater insight that you end up having,
yes,
to be able to guide you throughout your daily life. And like you said, you can try your best with information, but there is definitely a practice that you can get that inspiration, and the revelation comes when you are reading or just interacting, because sometimes things come through so many different forms, but you're way more self-aware of what's happening as they're coming, and you're able to then choose and say, hey, this is how I'm going to respond in this situation.
It's like you talked about a relationship, about meeting somebody, and a feeling of when you meet somebody, or even a dear friend, maybe a dear friend you can analyze more, but when you meet somebody and you like this person and someone says, why do you like this person? Your first gut answer is, I don't know. It just feels good. This person just feels right, because we don't have words for it. There's a term that's ineffable. It's an experience that is not able to define by words, but there is an ineffable quality to relationship that we can't use our left brain logic to analyze. It's something else going on. I like this person for no good reason other than I just like this person.
Yeah. And to me, I think it's almost like a resonation that's happening or a connection that's occurring. I think of music when you have multiple notes that are put together correctly, they can be in harmony. It's almost like when you meet someone that has that feeling, and there's harmony there, and that's really, I believe, where you can try your best to try to explain it. But like you said, it's a very difficult thing to just try to explain in words, or with even just your logic. It's just feels right.
Yeah, even the great philologist and master of words, Ludwig Wittgenstein, said words are only the top layer. The meaning of life is found underneath the words and what's driving the words. And this was a man dedicated to the use of words. You know what I want to do is we're going to stay on purpose, but we're going to take a little bit different direction. And I think this will be a lot of fun. And I know an important topic for you is seasons of life. You know, that how we all experience shifts and transitions, and that seasons of life, I'm curious, and I want us to look at how seasons of life impact our purpose. But at first, I want to tell just a brief story about a friend who was on the show, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, Taryn Voget, and she has a newsletter. And her newsletter today, talked about that so many people seem to go through 7 to 10 year transitions, and that transition moves to like not a totally different career, but something adjacent to it, some adjustment. And as I looked at it for my life, Randy, I've had at least seven careers. More than half of them are totally unrelated, but many are related. It's just a subset, but it's a very different vocational move for me. And that elicits a whole different sense of purpose. So talk to me about how you see seasons of life, shifts, transitions, and how that all impacts purpose.
There are so many different seasons of our lives, and you talked about from a vocational perspective, there are times when we do make shifts there. I also think of our lives, to give an example in our life where we started off, I met my wife in college and we got married, and it was just the two of us. Then as a few years went by, we ended up having our first child. We ended up having 3 children and enjoying life and raising the children by taking them all over the place. And in those times of life, had different transitions that occurred as they grew up and went to different portions of school or playing sports or whatever happened. And we had many responsibilities. We are now in the time where 2 of them are out of the house. One's in his last year of college. One's now in the house, but she's in her last year of school at high school. And we're looking at transitioning to being empty nesters. And during those transitions, we're like, wait a minute, we have way more time than we used to have. So there are things I can do now that I can do.
Enjoy that, because that won't last long, because whatever you're doing will fill up that time so quickly. So enjoy that time off right now. That's coming from an old guy.
Yeah, no, I love to hear that, because we know that with transitions, there are different things. And I remember being younger saying, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I knew I couldn't do all of those things and also be present for all of my children at particular times. And now you get to do some of those things, or depending on what you've done in your career and where you're at in life, you get to do some other things. And so we have different transitions that occur. And what I talk about in the book specifically is there's a scripture in the book where we have Paul and Silas, where they've been falsely accused and put in jail. But one of the things that happens, it says in that scripture, it says, and at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God. Midnight is when we all have our lives where there's a transition happening or a shift happening in our lives. So there's the night. It's no longer night. It's not day yet. And we are having a transition period. Sometimes it could be losing a loved one. I've had that happen in my life and change my life, and transition is not always easy. I've had where the job has changed and vocation has changed. I've had changes in family and how that occurs. And so when the transition happens, you're at midnight. Midnight is a pretty dark place because you don't know where things are going to go. But one of the key portions when you are in a season of transition is that you are in that place of listening, and also that you have support around you. Because during that time, you are going to be uncertain. And these are sometimes the most uncertain places of our lives where we usually take certainty to be something that we really enjoy, provides us safety. However, in these seasons of transition is when it's very uncertain. When it's uncertain, I encourage you to lean on your support. What does support look like? Support could look like a therapist. Support could look like a pastor. Support could look like a family member. Support could look like those that are around you that will listen to where you are at that moment.
Might I suggest another thing that's a really important support, and that is your routines or your rituals. Like you said, journaling.
Yes.
I have a morning routine that, as a retired guy, I can spend an hour and a half or 2 hours on my routine that I do every day. I mean, there are exceptions if something comes up, but 90% of the time, I'm doing my routines. They are a sense of support. They are a sense of grounding for me, and the roots going deep into the earth in the middle of this ritual or routine.
Yeah, and in transition, it's important for us to be able to find a way to come back to whatever our grounding or our center is. And rituals can definitely help with that, and having those disciplines and practices that you're doing and consistency will help with that, along with the support that you have at that moment, because things will be uncertain. But even with uncertainty, the encouragement I have to anyone in a situation, regardless of what it is, that I have found my short years here, based on my difference between age and your age, that everything is temporary. No matter what happens in this world, it's only temporary. If you go look outside right now and you look at grass, if there's grass somewhere or a tree somewhere, that is not the same leaves on the tree. That's not the same grass from last year. It's different. It's completely new growth, something else that's there. Same thing is with our lives. Everything changes, and the longer we live, we understand. We're like, otherwise I would still be a baby right now. Otherwise I would not have ever walked. I would have never talked. Would have never learned anything new. It changes. So whether we deem something good or bad, and we can have a whole conversation about that. You don't have to label things good or bad. You just know things happen in this life.
They are.
When
they just
happens,
are. Yeah.
When things happen, temporary. And know that there will be a way that you will finally reach a place where there's acceptance where you are now, and then you will have guidance of where you should go next. And so that's my encouragement during the seasons of transition. Of course, with the disciplines of prayer and meditation and journaling, if you're doing that consistently, it will also help you as you're moving through those seasons that you're transitioning.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of grounding. It gives you a sense. It gives you an utter sense of grounding. I have to tell you, there is nothing better than getting old. It is just a sense of perspective, of transition, of change, knowing that even though I'm old, I'm still in a transition. There is no certain aspect. Things are always in flux. Things are always changing. But there is the one thing that now that I can look back and see, Randy, is that my purpose from, say, 30 years old until now at just knocking on the door of 3/4 of a century, is that my purpose has not changed. My purpose has been two elements, and then a third has emerged in old age. But the two elements are, I am here to inspire and to influence. That is it. And those are the adjectives that drive everything I do. If I'm providing inspiration and influence, then that is my purpose. I am fulfilled. And now in the old age is to offer tidbits of wisdom, not direction, not how-tos, but have you thought, have you considered, what if, those sorts of things that an old man or an old woman can offer. And it really, man, I tell you, it really comes with old age. It's very cool to get old. I'm in a great place.
That's beautiful. And I believe that when you are sharing that information and you are providing that on a consistent basis, that out of your purpose, you have found that there are many ways to express that purpose in your life. So you've counted out different ways to express that same purpose. And that never changes. You're going to continue to have even newer ways to express that as you change and as we change and as we grow. That's amazing and the possibilities and the opportunities that come from being able to continue to be within your purpose, regardless of your age or what season of life you're in. You're able to express that in so many different ways.
Yeah, always walking into your potential. Randy Adkins, thank you for spending time with me today. It's so cool to talk to a kindred spirit.
Oh, man, it's been fantastic. I've enjoyed this conversation. I was like, oh, we're already done? Oh, man.
Yeah, it's time. And I will have your book on your website and the website. Do you want people to go to Amazon, or do you want them to go to your website for your book?
I would have them go to my website. It's randyadkinsjr.com.
I've got it. Yeah, randyadkinsjr.com. And there's a Here button on the show notes that people can click on it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got you covered, man. Thank you again. It was fun talking to you.
Yes, this has been a fantastic conversation. And Charlie, please keep inspiring, sharing your message. It's been inspiring to me with this conversation.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Everyone, until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.